incident, if it was a bomb threat, it was obviously deemed to be specific, and therefore alternative action had to be taken.
Philip, stay there if you would, because I'm just going to read another line from Stansted Airport, who have just released a line or two saying the diverted plane is at an isolated stand away from passenger areas, and that the airport itself is operating as normal. So all of that, I suspect, absolutely routine in terms of this is the specified airport for this sort of thing, and so all of those details exactly as you would expect, that it's been taken to an isolated stand away from other areas, and the normal work of the airport continues.
Well, and also to tell you, the word we're getting from our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale is that all of this is, as he was quoted, responding to a threat or threats, responding to a threat or threats. That is as specific as he has been able to ascertain. In fact, worth also saying that the MOD, the Ministry of Defence, saying now that responsibility for this incident has now passed to Essex Police and the Home Office. In fact, the MOD not saying at this point how serious the threat was, but that ties in. Responding to a threat is the phrase that we're being given, but the MOD not saying how serious. The responsibility for this incident now passing to Essex Police, because Stansted Airport is in Essex, of course, and to the Home Office.
Let's go to Islamabad, because, of course, Pakistan is where this flight actually came from. The BBC's Richard Galpin is there, and Richard, information coming from many, many strands on this story. We'll speak to our defence correspondent who's just rejoined us in a moment or two, but tell us what you're hearing where you are.
We haven't been able to get any actual official statements from any of the authorities here, so essentially what we know are the kind of bare bones about this flight taking off from Lahore Airport, and it was pretty full. You know, it had over 300 passengers on board, plus, of course, all the crew. Talking to colleagues here have recently travelled through Lahore Airport, saying that the security there is pretty good. You go through the normal checks, the scanners, the X-rays, metal detectors, and the luggage is checked and scanned as well. So, you know, the security at Lahore Airport is thought to be pretty good.
Richard, for now, thanks very much. Stay there, because our defence correspondent Jonathan Beale has just rejoined us. Jonathan, Jane was just quoting some of the information that you had passed to us. Just bring us right up to date.
Well, it's not clear whether it was a specific threat or threats by individuals on board. In other words, just shouting. We're not clear yet. So whether there was a specific threat or whether individuals behaving in a way that was threatening, I think that's going to become clear later on. As you say, Essex Police now taking over the situation. That plane has landed in Stansted. The reason, you know, we've heard it nearly got all the way to Manchester and then had to turn around and go back to Stansted, is because Stansted, along with one other airport in the UK, is nominated as the airport to deal with situations like hijacks and bomb threats. So that's the reason why it went to Stansted. Prestwick in Scotland is the other airport that deals with those kinds of scenarios. We know that there were always two typhoons that are part of this quick reaction alert. They are always on standby ready. They respond to any calls. They got a call. We don't know how that call, whether it was the crew on board of that civilian plane. But we now know that plane has landed, and that situation is being dealt with by Essex Police, and we'll wait and hear if there are any arrests.
Yes, some suggestion as well that the plane switched its transponder to the emergency code at 1:10 British time, this lunchtime. It was due to land, I think, at 2 o'clock in Manchester. As we know, it's on the ground in Stansted. Worth saying, I suppose, Jonathan, the reason there is this air of concern, anxiety, is because of all the events we've been talking about in the last few days.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, everybody is on a heightened sense of alert, but I think this was a specific alert that was the reason why these typhoons were scrambled from RAF Coningsby and went to intercept this flight. I think it's important to say that I've been told that the pilot was satisfied the situation was okay, that as soon as he escorted that flight to Stansted, he was able to leave. In other words, all the two pilots who would have been involved, because always, as I said, two planes, two typhoons are part of the quick reaction alert. So clearly no action was taken on his part other than to divert the plane. I think we have to wait and see what Essex Police now, whether they carry out any arrests, whether this was verbal threats, certain behaviour on the plane, or whether there was actually a threat of something like a bomb.
And would it be right to say that when an emergency code like this is actually put into force on board a passenger plane, would the passengers on board be unaware of that or aware of that?
They wouldn't be aware of the code used. I think they'd be aware if there was a situation on board where there was a passenger making threats. And as I said, we're not clear yet whether there was a specific threat on board that plane, whether there was an individual or individuals who were carrying out threats or making threats on that plane. But whatever it was enough for the crew to then use that code to alert the typhoons and get them scrambled from RAF Coningsby.
Jonathan, many thanks for now. Our defence correspondent, Jonathan Beale. I know you'll bring us any more as soon as you get that from the MOD. We will keep you up to date with that.